morning, good afternoon, good evening. I've said on this platform that Zimbabwe is a failed state. And one of the consequences of being a failed state is that we've failed to deal with some of the really teething problems. Corruption, without any doubt, is one of the biggest problems responsible for the country's economic meltdown. We have failed to end corruption. And there's no doubt about it. Somebody did a really wonderful job here by placing these two videos side by side. However, I would have placed them and played them in the reverse order. However, I'll play them in the order in which the individual produced them.
It is estimated, as has already been said, that Zimbabwe, we are losing 1.8 billion United States dollars annually due to corruption. That is a huge sum of money. And you can imagine what $1.8 billion could do. Such illicit financial flows are unacceptable and bleed the economy of revenue meant to promote sustainable economic development and the betterment of the livelihoods of all Zimbabweans. It is time, ladies and gentlemen, that we totally eradicate corruption in Zimbabwe and recover stolen assets. Corruption has trapped civilians in a web of poverty worldwide.
Fellow Zimbabweans, following the address we made on 13 November 2017, which we believe our main broadcaster, Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation, and the Herald were directed not to publicize the situation in our country, has moved to another level. Firstly, we wish to assure the nation that His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe and Commander-in-Chief of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, Comrade R.G. Mugabe, and his family are safe and sound, and their security is guaranteed. We are only targeting criminals around him who are committing crimes that are causing social and economic suffering in the country in order to bring them to justice. As soon as we have accomplished our mission, we expect that the situation will return to normalcy.
We'll stop it there. The gentleman who is speaking there is the late Sibusiso Moyo, who announced the coup in 2017. He and some of his coup plotters went on to form the next government. He became the Minister of Foreign Affairs. His other colleague in the army responsible for the coup was to become Vice President Chiwenga. And another colleague was to become Minister of Agriculture, Terence Shiri, and so on and so forth. The coup plotters promised to stamp out corruption. For those who are not aware of it, the lady was speaking about the US 1.8 billion every year being lost to corruption, was the chairperson of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission. She was also the wife of Minister of Foreign Affairs Sibusiso Moyo. Corruption under Mugabe was bad, but corruption under Mnangagwa was to become even worse. And anyone would have told you that Sibusiso Moyo, Mnangagwa, and all in that incoming cabal were as corrupt as one can well imagine. Here is one of the victims of the military coup, Professor Jonathan Moyo. He was one of those who were close to Mugabe and was booted out as a result of the military coup. But in this interview, he's telling us of how corrupt Mnangagwa, Sibusiso Moyo, and others are.
Are you corrupt?
No, in fact, this is laughable, seriously laughable. First of all, this is an accusation coming from the most corrupt politicians and public officials in the history of our country. They cannot account for the assets that they have. The richest individual in the Republic of Zimbabwe is Emmerson Mnangagwa. The one person who was responsible for setting up ZANU-PF companies when he was the Secretary for Finance of the ruling party is Emmerson Mnangagwa. There is no cent that comes from those companies, including a bank, including investments in the region, in countries like Namibia and even South Africa. The person who led the plunder of resources, even in foreign countries such as the Democratic Republic of Congo, leading to the United Nations investigating and coming up with a report that is still there, is Emmerson Mnangagwa, along with the military cabal of General Chiwenga, SP Moyo, the person who brought the Chinese to plunder Chiadzwa diamond resources for Zimbabwe, up to a point where we have, at the very least, over a period from 2007 to 2014, some 12 to 15 billion dollars in diamond revenue that remains unaccounted for, that went into the pockets of individuals. These people have staged a coup, not just to grab power for the sake of grabbing power, but in order to cover up their corruption. That command agriculture was nothing but a looting scheme.
That is very true. I think the 2017 military coup accomplished nothing, because all we succeeded was to swap one dictator for another. If we are serious about ending Zimbabwe's case of rigged elections and bad governance, we have to realize that what we need to change is the dictatorship itself. At the present moment, we are not doing that. We should have implemented the democratic reforms necessary to stop ZANU-PF rigging the elections during the 2008 to 2013 GNU, when we had the golden opportunity to do so. Unfortunately, Morgan Tsvangirai and his colleagues sold out. And we should be smart enough to know they sold out. It is important. We should also be smart enough to realize that at the present moment, ever since the GNU, the failed GNU, the opposition have been participating in flawed elections to give ZANU-PF legitimacy and perpetuate the dictatorship. We cannot afford this circus to carry on. We should be smart enough to know now that the 2028 elections, which is only 3 years down the line, will be a repeat of the 2023. Sorry, the 2028 election will be a repeat of the 2023 elections, which Mnangagwa blatantly rigged. But because he was able to bribe the opposition to participate, who in turn conned the people to participate in their millions in that flawed election, he was able to get away with it. Because as long as you participate in your millions, you give ZANU-PF legitimacy. That message has got to be hammered home. As long as you participate in the flawed elections in your millions, you give ZANU-PF legitimacy. Chamisa told the people of Zimbabwe that he was going to implement, that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes to stop ZANU-PF rigging the elections. The truth of the matter is, he was lying. And what is really disappointing is that even now, 2 years since the 2023 elections, some people still refuse to accept that Chamisa lied to them. If you cannot accept that Chamisa lied to you and conned millions of people to participate in the flawed elections, all it means is he can do it again. And he is gearing to do it again. This is the tragedy of Zimbabwe. After 45 years and counting of rigged elections, we really need to move on. We cannot afford this circus of rigged elections. The 2017 military coup achieved nothing because all it did is swap one dictator for another. What we need is to end the dictatorship itself. We cannot end the dictatorship by participating in flawed elections to give ZANU-PF legitimacy. We are not going to get any meaningful reforms implemented now. However, what we can do is make sure that Zimbabweans do not participate in the flawed 2028 elections in their millions. This is easier said than done, because many of the 2 million who were called to participate in 2023, and before that 2018, and before that 2013, will once again participate in flawed elections because they believe whatever Chamisa tells them. That has been our biggest curse. An electorate that is ignorant, naive, and gullible, that would easily be conned. They were conned to support the 2017 military coup, and then they were conned to participate in the 2018 and 2023 elections. There is a real danger they'll be conned to participate in the 2028 elections. It will be unforgivable if that was to happen. Because I believe if we could stop the millions participating in 2028 elections, ZANU-PF will be denied political legitimacy. And we will have another chance to form a GNU and implement the democratic reforms necessary to end this circus. Think about it. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.